Hello and welcome to Samuel's Fortress. I'm your host Kiril, and I want to first start off by thanking all the viewers and subscribers of the channel for your patience over the past couple months. I know it's been quite some time since the last video came out. I've just been extremely busy and will continue to be busy over the course of the summer most likely. So just once again, thank you very much for your patience, as it's going to take a little bit of time for these videos to come out for the foreseeable future. I am currently working on a pretty big project that I'm halfway through, hoping it'll come out sometime early to mid-June. The topic of that video was chosen by the channel members. If you're a member of Samuel's Fortress, not only do you have access to regular Q&A videos, but you also get to vote on the topic of future videos. So if you want to be a member of the channel, just go down below next to where the subscribe button is. There's a button that says join. You click on that and you sign up for channel membership. And again, that gives you the benefit of regular Q&A videos, getting to vote on future video topics, and you get to support the channel that way as well. Now, instead of making you guys wait another few weeks for that video to come out, I figured in the meantime, why don't we just do a quick reaction video to kind of satiate your appetite for a new video. Now, the first reaction video we're going to do on this channel is a super quick history of North Macedonia by Mr. History. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to... This is Europe, and here's North Macedonia.
Niko gash severna samo Macedonia.
Now let's go, shall we? Nestled neatly in the midst of the Balkans, the territory of North Macedonia has long been inhabited. But the first major state to be situated in its bounds was that of Paeonia. Not much is known of the Paeonians, though they are mentioned in Homer's Iliad as allies of the Trojans. They were conquered by the Persians in the 500s BC, but Persia withdrew a few decades later after the Greeks defeated them. The Paeonians grew increasingly aggressive and teamed up with the already aggressive Illyrians and began to attack a certain kingdom to the south. The name of the kingdom? Macedonia.
So, first of all, I think this is kind of the greatest irony of Macedonia, of North Macedonia, is that the territory of North Macedonia, if you go back to ancient times, as noted here, more corresponds with the ancient kingdom of Paeonia than it does with ancient Macedon. And the Slavic Macedonians today, if we kind of look at their pre-Slavic ancestry, their pre-Slavic genetics, as the people there are clearly mixed between Slavs and the indigenous population, have much more of a connection to the ancient Paeonians, again, genetically, as far as where the territory is located and so forth. And had the Slavic Macedonians, the Macedonian-Bulgarians of the 19th and early 20th century, kind of adopted the name Paeonia instead of Macedonia, it would have avoided a lot of the conflict in the modern day dispute with the Greeks, as the Greeks would have no problem with these Slavic-speaking Macedonians calling themselves Paeonians, calling their country, the Republic of Paeonia, stuff like that. So even though the modern-day Slavic Macedonians have a much stronger connection to Paeonia, as we will see here, they use the name Macedonia, which is more controversial and less accurate. So just kind of want to throw that out there that, I mean, it's probably too late to correct that now. I don't think the ethnic Macedonians, as they think of themselves today, are going to adopt the name Paeonians, but had that been done so 100, 150 years ago, we would have avoided a lot of the problems that we see today, specifically in the dispute with Greece.
Too bad for the Paeonians, though, as they attacked at a time when Macedonia had produced a military genius of a king called Philip II. Philip's phalanxes furiously flogged the invaders, and the Macedonians would go on to conquer all Paeonia, into which place they brought the Greek language and culture.
And I guess that's one of the arguments of the modern Slavic-speaking ethnic Macedonians, that even though originally they weren't even though they're not the descendants of the ancient Macedonians conquered that territory, assimilated them into Macedonian culture, the Hellenic world, and therefore they have a right to the name Macedonia through that process of assimilation of the Paeonians into Macedonians. There is not a terribly illegitimate argument. I mean, we kind of make the same one on this channel, where clearly the people of North Macedonia today, which are a combination of Slavs and the indigenous population, are not genetically tied to the Bulgars, or they weren't part of the original Bulgar kingdom as far as geography is concerned, but by the Bulgars conquering Macedonia, assimilating the Slavs into the Bulgarian culture, they kind of quote-unquote became Bulgarian. So that's kind of the same argument that a lot of ethnic Macedonians, Slavic-speaking Macedonians will make today, that even though the people there didn't start off as Macedonians, by being incorporated and assimilated by the Macedonians, they became Macedonian.
Philip's famous son, Alexander the Great, had a unit of Paeonians in his army, under a general named Ariston. In one of the key battles of Alexander's conquest of Persia, Gaugamela, the Paeonians fought exceptionally well, and won the praise of Alexander himself. After his death in 323 BC, Alexander's sprawling empire was divided among his generals. In the years afterward, Paeonia and surrounding lands were disquieted by a Celtic invasion around 280 BC, and some further skirmishes with Macedon. And then the Romans conquered them all, and the region became part of a province called Macedonia.
Yeah, and as we see here, this Roman territory of Macedonia doesn't necessarily correspond perfectly to the borders of ancient Macedonia. And as we will see throughout history, the boundaries of what is referred to as Macedonia are ever changing and are not exactly stable, depending on which empire is there and all that. The boundaries of Macedonia will change over the centuries,
which included not only Paeonia and Macedon, but also bits of Thrace and Illyria.
Correct.
Roman rule was economically good for the area, but plenty of coins and bountiful harvests can't stop raging marauders from invading, which is what ended up happening. Western Rome succumbed to these invaders, but the Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire, to which Macedonia belonged, held firm and survived. The 6th century saw the arrival of the Slavs, who spread through the Balkans, including the land we know as North Macedonia.
So this is interesting here. And I made a whole video on this a couple years ago, but as you can see here on this map, the Slavs didn't stop at the border of the modern border of North Macedonia and Greece. The Slavs went well into Greek territories. There were large Slavic settlements, even down into the Peloponnese. We see here into Albania and whatnot. So the reason I'm saying this is because there is kind of this rhetoric by some Greeks that, the Greeks are the pure indigenous inhabitants of the Balkans, the, ethnic Macedonians, the Slavic Macedonians, the Bulgarian Serbs, they are invaders who have no connection to the ancient history of the region and whatnot. And we see that's simply not true. I mean, every single Balkan nation is a mix genetically of the indigenous, autochthonous population and of the Slavic migrants of the early Middle Ages. Now, some peoples like the Greeks, like the Albanians, like the Romanians, managed to keep their pre-Slavic language, but that doesn't really necessarily mean that they don't have Slavic ancestry. You have Greek Macedonians, Greek-speaking Macedonians from the Greek region of Macedonia, and ethnic Slavic Macedonians from North Macedonia who have very, very similar genetics, and that's because they are both a combination of Slavs and the indigenous people on the Balkans. The reason why the people in the north speak a Slavic language and the people in the south speak Greek, kind of maintain their Hellenic language, is simply because the people in the north for many centuries were part of the Slavic Bulgarian Empire, whereas the people in the south, particularly around the Aegean coast in Salonika and whatnot, were part of the Greek-speaking Eastern Roman / Byzantine Empire. So the difference between the Greek-speaking Macedonians and the Slavic-speaking Macedonians isn't so much genetic, but linguistic, and that linguistic difference is, again, based on the political entity which they found themselves in for many centuries during the medieval period. So, again, a lot of Greeks, and to a certain extent recently Albanians, will try to make this argument again that they are the indigenous, autochthonous people, and the Slavs are the invaders who have no connection. Again, that's not true. To one extent or another, all the people in the Balkans, from Bulgaria to Croatia, from Greece to Romania, are a combination of ancient peoples, indigenous peoples, and Slavs.
And over time they adopted Christianity. Here are some beautiful churches that were built in the North Macedonian city of Ohrid. In the 800s, the Bulgarians swallowed up Macedonia. Then the Byzantines took it back. Then the Bulgarians took it again. And then the Serbs came to town.
What I love about discussing this period of medieval Macedonia with Serbs, and I've done so in real life with a lot of Serbian friends, is they take so much credit for the establishment of Slavic Orthodoxy in Macedonia, for the spread of Slavic Orthodox culture, when in reality we see not only is the Serbian influence in Macedonia comes centuries after the establishment of Slavic Orthodoxy, which was done during the First Bulgarian Empire in the 9th and early 10th century. But look at how short this period of time is. It's literally 25 years. You can delete this period of time entirely from Macedonian history and nothing would change. But a lot of Serbs act like without them there would be no Slavic Orthodox churches, no Slavic Orthodoxy in Macedonia whatsoever. So I just think that's a little interesting how the Serbs take so much credit for such a short period of time in which nothing new was really added to Macedonia.
Because here come the Turks, who would take definitive control of Macedonia after the Battle of Kosovo in 1389. The Ottoman Turks ruled the region for 5 centuries, an epoch of stability, though also oppression and misery. Now, amidst the nationalist sentiments sweeping across 19th century Europe, ethnicities everywhere were trying to figure out who they were. In those days, the people we know as Macedonians were basically considered Bulgarian.
Abe, kakvi Bugari be, majke da ti jebam. Kako ne ti je stran ovakva tatarska propaganda da širiš na internet. Cel svet saka da ne uništi.
But that began to change after the year 1875, following the publication of a phrasebook by Gjorga Bulevski, in which he argued that the Macedonians were a distinct nationality, not Bulgarians, and that they were in fact descendants of the ancient Macedonians.
So, first of all, Gjorga Bulevski, to me, is not a serious person. I mean, his theories are completely erratic and incoherent, frankly. But there's no evidence that there was a large-scale conception among the Slavic people in Macedonia as separate from Bulgarians in 1875. That's just not the case. The people then were still very much thinking of themselves as Bulgarians. It's not really until 1903 with Misirkov's work on Macedonian matters that we see a coherent theory of a separate Macedonian people being put forward. And even then he says, up until now, we have been Bulgarians, but we should become Macedonians. He lays out the argument of why the Macedonian Bulgarians should become a separate ethnic group.
In 1903, the Internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization launched a rebellion against the Turks, which was brutally crushed. But the Ottoman Empire was on its last legs, and after the Balkan Wars, it lost most of its territory in Europe, and Serbia ended up acquiring most of Macedonia.
It's just hilarious here. I mean, it's not hilarious, it's kind of sad, but there really were no Serbs in Macedonia, even in the north, prior to the Balkan War period, yet Serbia grabbed so much of that territory for itself at the expense of Bulgaria, who was the supermajority population in that region, which is one of the reasons why Bulgaria launched the Second Balkan War and involved itself the way it did in the First and Second World Wars.
The Serbs pushed to Serbianize the region and purge it of Macedonian and Bulgarian influence. Then, during World War I, the Bulgarians invaded and pushed to Bulgarize the region. However, since Bulgaria was on the losing side of the war, Macedonia...
That's kind of ridiculous. If we look at the author's own, the video maker's own statements from just a little bit ago, he admits that the population in the northern portion of Macedonia was Bulgarian. So why would the Bulgarians need to Bulgarize them if they're already Bulgarian? I mean, Serbia got northern Macedonia in 1913 based on the Treaty of Bucharest. So in only 2 short years, they managed to Serbianize the population to the extent that Bulgaria had to re-Bulgarize them. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Clearly, they were still Bulgarian at the time. I've gone over that in previous videos. And therefore, to call it an occupation is absurd. I mean, clearly, if the population there is Bulgarian under Serbian rule, Bulgaria's actions during the First World War are not an occupation, they're a liberation. And pretty much all the high-ranking members of the internal Macedonian Revolutionary Organization fought in the Bulgarian army. You had Protogerov, Alexandrov, Drangov, all of them fighting as Bulgarian officers. The Macedonian infantry divisions, which numbered more than 30,000 men, voluntarily fought for the Bulgarians to push the Serbians out. So to call this an occupation is a bit absurd.
Was on the losing side of the war, Macedonia passed again into Serbia's hands when it was included in the kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. Serbianization was again promoted, but also resisted. In 1934, the Soviet Communist International Organization became the first body to officially recognize the existence of a distinct Macedonian nationality and language.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, kind of goes back to a lot of the rhetoric that the Macedonians were created under Tito in 45. I mean, there is evidence of a distinct idea for an ethnic Macedonian nation prior to that, even 1934 here. Still from the communists, it is a historically leftist idea, but it predates 1945 by, obviously a decade.
During World War II, the Bulgarians took control again, but once again they were on the losing side of the war and the communists were victorious, and Macedonia became a part of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. All the Slavic-speaking countries of the Balkans were part of it, except Bulgaria. Under socialism, Macedonia made big, rapid strides in industrialization and modernization. But as Yugoslavia began to collapse in the late 20th century, Macedonia voted for independence and gained it in 1991. Now, Greece was unhappy that the newborn nation was named Macedonia, as Greece already had a region by that name, the place where Alexander was born, and was displeased that the country used this ancient symbol for its flag.
Yeah, the start of the dispute with Greece is very interesting. I think Greece's problem with the Slavic Macedonians of the north using the name Macedonia is unreasonable. As we've seen, those territories, those northern territories of Macedonia, have been part of regions called Macedonia since Roman times, even throughout the Ottoman period. That area to the north, the region of the modern-day Republic of North Macedonia, was referred to Macedonia. I've made videos in the past where we see that in the late 19th, early 20th century, you have Western journalists, statesmen, politicians, academics referring to the territories in the north as part of Macedonia. So I think Greece's claim that everything north of the border, nothing north of the border can ever be called Macedonia, that Macedonia is only the region where ancient Macedonia is located, is a bit nonsensical. It's too restrictive. I think they're attempting to kind of freeze the understanding of kind of the territory of Macedonia 2,500 years ago and ignore a lot of the subsequent development that expanded the understanding of that region, again, over the past several centuries, millennia even. Now, when we get to symbols like this, like the Virginia sun, historical references to ancient Macedonia, especially under the Gruevski administration. I made a whole video on Antiquization where we talk about this in more detail, but I think here Greece has a bit more legitimacy when opposing some of these symbols being used by the Slavs in the north. And I will say that even from a purely Macedonian, Slavic Macedonian point of view, leaving aside Greece's problem with these symbols, it is a bit strange that the Macedonians have chosen the Virginia sun and to also make such a strong connection to Alexander, to antiquity, because as we see over the past 150 years in kind of the modern nation building process of the Slavic Macedonians, at every opportunity, the Slavic-speaking Macedonians have rejected the Hellenic idea. I mean, not just, since 91, but even during the late Ottoman period into the Balkan War period, there were attempts to incorporate the Slavic-speaking Macedonians, the Macedonian Bulgarians, into Greece, into this new Greek state. And the Slavs fought vehemently against that. I mean, they opposed the patriarchate, the Greek patriarchate. They fought against the Greek army. They launched insurgencies against the Greeks and whatnot, which we've gone over in previous videos. And the question is, why would they do that if they think of themselves as the descendants of the ancient Macedonians, if they want to have such a strong connection to ancient Macedonia? Because, I mean, let's imagine that, we brought Alexander the Great back, Philip II Alexander, to the modern time period. Let's say they were resurrected in the early 20th century, just before the Balkan Wars. I mean, does anyone have any doubt that Alexander would have fought for the Greeks, that he would have opposed the Megali idea? I mean, of course he wouldn't have. He would have been a strong supporter of the Greek idea. He would have been a strong promoter of Hellenization of Macedonia. He would have led the Greek armies in the Balkan Wars to the gates of Istanbul and whatnot. So it's very strange. It's one of the kind of absurdities of this ancient Macedonism that goes on, is that the people who claim such a strong connection to the ancient Macedonians and wish to use their symbols fight tooth and nail against Hellenization, the very idea that Alexander birthed, this idea of a united Greek people in a united Greek state, the spread of the Hellenic idea, the spread of the Greek language. So I do see the point of view of the Greeks where they find it absurd, as do I, that a Slavic people who, again, throughout their entire modern history fought against the Hellenic idea, wish to adopt the imagery, the symbolism, and the history of the greatest promoter of Hellenism. That it is one of the great ironies of the idea of Macedonism, of that ideology.
Macedonia, reluctantly, agreed to alter its flag, but the name issue dragged on till 2018, when the country, reluctantly, rebranded itself North Macedonia. The new name hopefully proves satisfactory, as there is some accuracy to it, as we see from this map. This bit of North Macedonia was part of the ancient Macedonian kingdom, and when we consider the broad region named Macedonia, this section is most certainly North Macedonia.
Absolutely. I mean, again, leaving aside the fact that Greeks dispute that this is the geographic region of Macedonia, which, again, I find that objection to be invalid. I mean, I get why they want to do that. They want to cut off Macedonia here at the Greek border in order to kind of claim exclusivity over the history of Macedonia. But, I mean, throughout, again, from Roman times to the Ottoman period and in between, the territory of Macedonia has shifted quite a bit, and by the late Ottoman period, even Westerners acknowledge that this whole region is Macedonia. So to deny that this area is northern Macedonia is absurd. I mean, the problem with people have both the Macedonians, the Slavic Macedonians, and the Greeks have a problem with the name North Macedonia, despite the Prespa Agreement, which was very unpopular in both countries. The Slavic Macedonians don't like the term North. They don't like the addition to North. They just want to be known as Macedonia, which they can't really have because they only control a small portion, about 40% of the entire region of Macedonia. So how can you claim exclusivity to the name Macedonia when you don't even control the majority of the region, nor the most important and historical parts of Macedonia, which are down here in the south? Likewise, the Greeks can't deny the name Macedonia, which is the part of the name that they object to. The reason why the Greeks don't like the Prespa Agreement is because they don't like the Macedonia part of the name, North Macedonia, because, again, they don't feel that anything above or north of the Greek border should be referred to as Macedonia. But as we see, it is clearly within the geographic boundaries of Macedonia. And, to be honest, if the Greeks want to get very specific and kind of anal with this term Macedonia, I mean, they call this entire region, this green region, Macedonia. But if we look historically, prior to the expansion of the territories of ancient Macedonia by Philip II, which is what is excuse me here depicted by this red line. I mean, this red line, which approximates the ancient kingdom of Macedonia, was not the original territory of ancient Macedonia. This is the expanded territory based on Philip's conquest. This is, one could say, roughly 336 BC. But prior to the conquests of Philip, Macedonia is much, much smaller. And therefore, if we want to limit the understanding of Macedonia to its original boundaries, then even the Greeks are guilty of calling territories Macedonia, which are not consistent with the original boundaries of that ancient kingdom.
This section is most certainly North Macedonia.
Yes,
now, relations with Bulgaria are more tricky.
And I should say, kind of going back, I know I'm kind of going back to that slide here, but like I said, most of the Slavic, quote-unquote, ethnic Macedonians living in North Macedonia and the Greeks, the ethnic Greeks of Greek Macedonia, oppose the name North Macedonia, but I actually don't mind it. I think it's a very reasonable and fair compromise, frankly. Again, it is located within the region of Macedonia. However, it is in the north, and it is a republic, so the Republic of North Macedonia is a very fitting name for this country. I think it's a fair compromise, and I think that both sides should just let it go at this point. I think that issue should be settled, and we can simply move on from the name issue.
Macedonia. Now, relations with Bulgaria are more tricky. Bulgaria insists that North Macedonia's people and language are Bulgarian.
That's not exactly true. The Bulgarians are a little bit more hard to line when it comes to the language. They do view it as a Western dialect of the Bulgarian language. However, most Bulgarians have no problem recognizing a separate Macedonian nation, ethnic group at this point. Most Bulgarians are not stubborn on the fact that these are a separate people at this point. Now, there are historical disputes on how that new nation arose, but I don't think most Bulgarians think of the people living in North Macedonia as ethnically Bulgarian as we sit here in the year 2023.
Something Macedonians passionately deny. Thus, Bulgaria, which is a member of the EU, uses its position there to block North Macedonia from entering the European Union. Meanwhile, the large Albanian minority in North Macedonia is like, yo, what about us? Though Macedonian Albanians are predominantly Muslim, the most famous of them was Roman Catholic nun Mother Teresa. Anyway, North Macedonia joined NATO in 2020, and the country today has attained a high level of human development, and despite its muddled, troubled history and current challenges, it has made substantial improvements, and let's hope they continue. So best of luck to North Macedonia, but as for me, it's bye for now. Bye-bye!
Alright, so that was the first reaction video on the channel. Let me know what you guys think. I don't mind doing more of these in the future. I've never, like I said, done any reaction videos prior to this one, so I don't know what copyright issues I may or may not run into, but assuming everything is okay, I don't necessarily mind doing more of these in the future. There's quite a lot of content out there on this topic on YouTube over the past few years, especially as the Greek and Bulgarian disputes have garnered more international attention. So if there's any specific videos you want me to react to, just link to those down below in the comment section. Actually, don't link to them. YouTube deletes comments automatically that have links in the comments. So just I think they do that because they flag it as spam, even though it's not spam like 99% of the time. But in any case, if you want me to react to a specific video, just put the channel name and the video title in the comment section and I'll find it. So, with that being said, again, there will be a big project coming out, a new video coming out over the next few weeks as I wrap it up. So kind of stay tuned and watch out for that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.